Hello, everyone. Feel like singing at least just a little bit today. I am finishing up some of these little detail things here in this piece before I move on to the next phase. So, first of all, this is the weekend before my birthday, so I'm considering this a birthday weekend stream. So, yay! That's always fun. I love it. And then, secondly, it is Pride weekend here in Columbus, and I have decided that I am going to sit this one out this year. I have not gone to Pride like every year that I've been in Columbus, but I've gone, the past 3 years, and I think that this year I just kind of want to sit it out. I have been feeling that way for a few times before, and today I'm actually doing that. So my friends are downtown asking me to come join them. They're, at the parade and all that fun stuff, and I'm like, no, I think I'll pass. Thanks, though. Boyfriend and I were out and about today, at least just a little bit, and we were thinking of getting bikes and riding one of the trails, and we were gonna go to the movies and do some stuff this weekend. So we had, and mostly was, it's also Father's Day weekend, so it was mostly plans with his dad, and those kind of got changed. So we're home. He's actually napping, and I am here celebrating my birthday, at least just weekend, painting. Well, I will be painting in a minute. What I want to do is just kind of get all these extra details here in this piece, like the things that I think are meaningful and make sense. I am likely going to get black ink all over me. So, but yeah, birthday. Yeah, it's mine. My birthday is actually on Tuesday. So, kind of looking forward to that day. I don't know if I'm going to do anything special that day or what, but at least for right now, I'm enjoying the experience. We're just gonna... So, I was looking at this piece, and I'd spend some time away from it just to kind of get a feel for other things that I could do. I don't want to use this brush to do all that with. That's too much for this brush to do. Lots of things are actually missing from this thing right now, so what I want to do is spend some time actually going in and, adding those inked details and making sure that everything is where it is supposed to be. Try not to get all up in the camera here. So one thing I wanted to do for myself was I was thinking about getting myself a Nintendo Switch. Have you anybody stopped to watch the Nintendo Direct? Just I think it was last week, and then there was obviously E3 was this past weekend, this past few days actually. So I'm curious if anyone has actually stopped to watch that, because I was checking a few things out. We went to go take a look at the Switch today because I'm thinking about getting one. I always end up with black ink on my handles of my brushes. But it's a decision that still needs to be made. I know I'm late to the game, but that's usually my story. So always late. There were a few games that I did see, and it was so funny because I think I mentioned to a friend of mine how I am suddenly interested in getting an Xbox. I have no need for an Xbox. And then, watching the Xbox presentation and seeing, what they're doing and how they're bringing Xbox games to PC, because I am a PC player, was kind of cool. So what we're doing, we're going to go into all these little details and just add this black in here. So we can really start to have these figures take shape. I will tell you right now, I am not all that great when it comes to inking, but I have somewhat of an idea of where some of the shadows should sit and how they should look. It's fine there, just like that. But I think this is actually starting to take shape and look as good as I could hope for. As always, if I'm quiet, it's really because I'm concentrating and trying to make sure I do things properly. so funny because obviously when working in, you know, your blackest blacks, your deepest, darkest shadows, you always have to remember where your actual light is coming from. I think some time ago I came up, I mean, and by some time I mean like a few years ago, I came up with kind of this strategy for mapping in my darkest shadows. And it's just, you know, based off of, you know, a few observations here and there. And just kind of the look that I'm going for. Think of where the light is at its strongest, and what you want to consider, at least in my regard, I've always done it this way, is where that light is basically on its opposite end is going to be your darkest blacks. So if, let's say we have the light coming in from this angle, let me get my brush so you can actually see what I'm talking about, from like this angle right here on the leg of Selen's robe, a lot of those really dark black shadows are going to be right under these folds here, like immediately. You know, these lighter areas will start to take on some darker colors and darker tones, but the blackest black will be like immediately on the opposite edge of this. And that usually gives a lot of really great weight to the piece. So what I do need this brush here. Let's go with this little guy. And I mean, like I said, a lot of this is just observations that I've made from working, doing my normal thing. Oh no, my brush. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, and you're also considering, you know, how the folds line up and what's obscuring what, so you know, we should have that going on there, maybe something like that, and then obviously over here do the same thing. Brush is all bent out of shape somehow. I say somehow like I don't know, that I don't take care of my brushes as well as I should. There, I said it. I said it. And it's not because they're cheap brushes or because I don't care. It's just, you know, I like to have all my materials as accessible as possible in case I ever get the feeling to just sit down and do something. And I know it's not the best, but it is what it is. We're always getting better all the time, so I don't need anybody yelling at me. Okay, so we want that right there, and we want that right there, just like that. And then we're gonna come in here for a little bit of that, and we'll do some of this down there. Curve that just to get that. There we go. Actually get it all up in here as well. We'll do something like this to show if those are layers. That. I have to get a different brush. That is not going to work. I actually do take care of my brushes a lot better than I used to. I'll tell you that for sure. So I'm not terribly accustomed to having my brushes fanned out the way these little guys are right now, so it's a little distressing. So, well, this is the only one I've got that's really going to do what I needed to do. So, we'll go in and we'll continue adding in these details. We'll get all up in there, and maybe just like that. We'll do that, and some of this, and I don't need to go in there, but I do want to go in here and do some of this, some of that. What's great about adding your blacks is they can really be very, very good for gesturing in folds of fabric, subtle wrinkle details. And mostly they're, just kind of there to really help you show depth. Silhouette going on in there, some of that there too, and we'll actually bring that around like that. What I actually wanted to do with this leg is because it's not really the light too much, is that there we go. I do a little hatching from now and then. Oh, that's right. One of the reasons why I picked up this brush in the first place, maybe it just needs to be conditioned, was to fix my girl's arm here. There we go. All right. that's better. Give me just a minute. I'm gonna check something real quick. Okay, back to it. So I don't know that if I will be getting to color today, but you know, it's okay. I only have to. Deepen all that up in there. So we've got that. We'll do a little bit of this too. Okay, perfect. And back here we will bring out more of that black. We'll do this. Going to mumble to myself for a little bit. Just to help me focus. Yeah. Actually need a thicker brush here. Nope, not that one. Where's the Magic Stick? There we go. So now, get as close to that edge as possible. Back here. So all that's back there in that shadow area. Do the same thing here. We can just do that. Okay. You know what? Just go all in. There we go. Alright. That's starting to take shape. I love it. One of these days, one thing I would love to do would be to kind of just make a painting that's just entirely black ink. No pencils. Just I want to just be able to go in and say, bam, here we go, black ink. Okay. Until that day comes, we will do this in pencil first. So next, I want to kind of consider what's happening here in this range, what's going to be going on this side, because there are going to be just a few little bits of details of some black here. Just going in here. And the thing that I was really wondering about what I was going to do is having the light come from behind them as well, but also have a few more directional focus lights on them. If there's light coming from back here, obviously having directional lights here would cancel out some of the deep shadow that I really want to do here. So they'd be very minor shadows that we would see on there. So it's definitely something I want to consider and just kind of play around with. So I don't really know how that's going to work. So, but at least I know where some of those shadows will be sitting. This one still has ink on it. So let's go ahead and clean this brush off before I jump back into that. I don't know what that was going to look like. I tend to clean my brushes pretty frequently as I'm painting and inking, even if I'm going in for the same color. I don't know why I do that. It's just kind of a thing. Usually I just like to make sure that, you know, my brush is as clean as possible. So there's that, and like I said, I want to get into some of these shadows here. This I knew was going to be like that. Do that like that. So I'm fully expecting rain today for some reason. It started sprinkling a little while ago. So now all I'm hearing is just the wind and the trees, but I feel like it should rain a little bit today. So we'll see if that happens. I would love just a little bit of rain today if that was going to be a thing that would happen. Do that, and we'll get in right there. Silhouette of the hair here. I feel like I've decided that this character does indeed have white hair, but I love playing around with him, you know, and having dark hair. I don't know if you saw the painting that I did a few weeks ago where I drew him in his future current self, and I gave him his dark hair, and every other version of him that I've done so far lately has been him with white hair. So, you know, it's something that I'm still thinking about, you know, which color hair really suits him. I like them both. Do that. There and do something like that. Okay, perfect. So that's looking good. The big thing about after you ink is one thing that I have noticed that I'm getting into the habit of doing is letting your ink dry. And it really, like, depending on how thick you layer it on, you're going to want to spend some time just letting it completely dry and cure before you do any line erasing that helps to save you from any disasters and mistakes and oopsie moments. I had one on that same piece actually, and I realized that I just didn't let the ink dry long enough. It's like, yeah, I took a brush over it to see if there were going to be any smears, which is a very daring thing to do, and I do not recommend that in general. But, you know, it wasn't really a production piece or something that I was going to really do too much with, so I was fine with, you know, if it smeared a little bit, if the ink smeared a little bit, that's fine. It wasn't the end of the world for me. I wasn't really going to do much with that piece anyway. It was really just, I wanted to kind of sit down and do something. But let's do that. Let's do that. But, you know, when I saw that smear, it still affected me. So I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And that smear only came because I used an eraser on the piece. And the thing about erasers is because of their material, I'm going to have to be very careful. Because we'll pick up the ink. And you definitely do not want that. Especially if you spent, you know, several hours inking a piece and you finally get it perfect, and then suddenly you take an eraser to it to erase your pencil lines, and you're smearing everything all over the place, and that is basically the end of that piece. I have had that before in other pieces where I attempted to, you know, kind of teach myself some inking techniques. I learned the hard way not to do that. And then what happens lately? I forget that lesson entirely right out the door. To do that, just to put that in there. Oh, that's right. And she's, well, you know, this character was wearing a cape. I don't know if she still is. She probably is. So what we'll do is go in there and we will just put that in there. Just to block that in, and we'll do the same on this side. And we'll do that, and there she's good. Now for him, go back to Europa here. Gonna deepen that shadow back there. We're gonna do this little thing there. Mordanas all have dark hair, so he definitely should have some darker blacks in his hair. One thing I'm forgetting over here, speaking of hair, is the detail in Mahalia's hair. There we go. Her hair is a dark brown. Selen also has black hair, so get some of these details now while we can. Add some of that for Belinda. I always take the brush and just, you know, whatever the texture of the material that I'm painting, especially these like really soft hair, soft kinky hair, I'll usually just, you know, follow that same texture just to kind of give that texture the proper definition that it needs. And it usually works out. I just drew an outline of her hair. That's fantastic. I don't need to do anything with that. Bald. I have another piece that I want to show off a little later. I have a video that I will be editing and putting up onto the YouTube channel. You know, it's so funny. I always say YouTube page, and I do mean YouTube channel. This is coming from someone who spends so much time on Facebook. That I want to put up onto my YouTube channel, showing how I did, showing a character. Again, not really production piece, but, you know, I had fun doing it, and I want to show that off. And that particular character also had locked hair, much like Sisson down there. So I wanted to show that off, and especially how I managed to do that. And it's just a pencil drawing, so it's not, you know, a whole big to-do, but it was a fun experience for me. I feel like 10 should have more almost absolute black details here in his outfit, but I'm afraid that if I were to put any in, I would just be screwing up his look. So we've got some really great detail in here of him, so, you know, there we go. That works. There we go. Now he doesn't look so flat over there. His wrinkles are going in that direction. Do that. Okay. So anyway, I mentioned erasing pencil lines because I'm wondering how close I'll be able to get this piece to a finished state in order to actually add some color into it. And I'm just not sure that's going to happen today. So, since a lot of this ink will still be very wet, and even one thing I've seen when it comes to laying down inks is that even when you're absolutely 100% sure that it is completely dry and is not going to smear, even, you know, your waterproof acrylic ink, I've seen this before, will still come up with water. And I'm going to be very careful about that, especially as I'm laying down color. I don't want to lose my ink or have it get muddy, have my colors get muddied. So that is not a list that's not on the list for happening today. So we'll see where we are, and maybe we'll go to a different piece to finish up. All right, so Belinda here has a whole lot going on. Lots of wrinkles in her garb here, so with the right brush, I think, to just kind of... And I did map a few of these out the last time we were here. So I know where a lot of her shadows will actually be. Main reason why I did it then was because I wasn't actually sure that I was going to go into this much detail with the blacks here, and you know what? I realized that I needed to, because it just was not going to look good until I did. Wasn't going to be what I needed it to be until I actually went in and did what I'm doing right now. The great thing about being an artist is learning as you go. You know, just being able to play with stuff and say, I'm going to try this. And then just trying it and seeing how it goes. So I like to experiment a lot, learn new things, and see what type of new skills that I can develop in myself. Develop my hand and my work, and obviously the practice of it will help to steady my hand, because as I think I've mentioned before, my hands are not steady, so I get a lot of shakes. That's not bad. That looks kind of neat. That's why I have to use both hands to, as I do something like this. One hand holds the other hand steady. So this is kind of challenging. I want to make sure I do this right. There we go. Battle plate there, and to get a little bit back there. Okay, yeah, I think some of my shadow choices don't make sense according to where the light is coming from, but you know what, I'll stick with it because I feel that that's what I want to do. So that's what I'm going to do. I think it adds, regardless, I think it adds some really great depth to it. And as I said, I'm still learning this myself. So as I go along, one thing is for sure, we'll just, all of that, just like that. I think that looks good. One thing that I do now always is I will, as I mentioned, I, kind of drew my loops and different things. I always make a point of drawing in the spaces where those absolute black shadows will happen, so that when I do go to ink, all of the important information is already there on the page, and I just have to follow through with what my plan was. Just do that. That looks crazy, so we'll just do this. But I'm getting better. He's still missing something in there, and that is going to be this. Go. Okay. I'm gonna go over this over there and drop more of this in there. It's easy also to go really overboard, and I'm saying that to keep myself from doing exactly that, but again, it's very easy to go overboard when it comes to adding shadows. You start, and then you're like, oh, I need to put a shadow here, and I need to put a shadow here. Yeah, and maybe in real life some of those shadows would be there, but honestly, if you overdo it, you'll just end up with a black painting, and just almost everything is black. There's very little light going on, and things just won't look right. So you always want to be careful with how much of that shadow you're actually adding. Just do that. Here we go. So you can't really see what's going on there with his arm. be obscured. Shadows and your blacks are also a really good way to just obscure things that you know are not really going to be seen. As I did right around in here with these things here. That's detail that's, you know, obviously not going to be super important. Everything that you are seeing right here is what you want to see. Also, usually shadows are aimed downwards, or at least they're on the downward side of the object, for the obvious reason that most things are receiving light from above them. Get back in here. Okay. Okay. Alright, so what else can I do here with this? The stairs, which you just saw me adding at the beginning, they need some of those shadows in there too. So we're going to take this brush here, my little flat, and we'll just go ahead and we'll just, you know, block those in. Start on this side. Oh, I forgot to draw the rest of her shadows down there, so we'll take care of that in a minute. Let's go in and down here, and we'll do something like that. Also, kind of like light, a lot of times your shadows will be mapped in two different places. So you obviously have, you know, as I said, you know, the opposite edge of the light. You're going to draw your deepest shadows. But also, you want to look at where things are concealed or obscured by other objects and say, okay, that is also where there's going to be shadow. And that keeps your depth pretty true. So let's say down here we have all of this blocked in, and then maybe just a bit of that here. And the more bold your shadows, the more of a contrast of light you're having, the brighter, in effect, in essence, that light is you're putting in there. So sometimes your shadows, especially when you draw really, really deep, and you know, it's so cool because I've seen some really great shadow work done. As far as I'm concerned, anybody else who can ink better than me does great work with shadows. But it was so long ago, the artist, these really great deep shadows, and the whole piece just, you know, took on this feeling of mystery, and I thought that was super cool, and I just love the way that looked. And me personally, I've never really been able to do something like that. She should also be casting a shadow on these stairs, so what I'm going to do is let's map out first the shadow that the stairs themselves have. And then we will toss in her shadow on top of it as well. On the tape, so we're good there. Alright, so now we can draw in her own cast shadow. Now, your cast shadow isn't always a perfect mirror of the figure. Remember that when you're drawing in your shadows, they're going to do very different things depending on the angle of the shadow, the material it's being cast on, the angle of the object itself that's receiving that shadow. So, you know, a lot of times most of all of the stairs here are going to get that shadow right now. A good portion of it, so we can be pretty liberal about it. What we want to do is make sure that, we'll just do all of that there, is that it at least makes a little bit of sense. And what would also make sense here, we're going to do some of that down there, and then we should have more shadow right in here. She's wearing some pretty big pants. So we're going to do that. And perfect. Next, I'm going to clean off my brushes before I begin the next phase of my master plan. So we also need to get some shadows up in, it's dry. It's, well, not dry, it's just got water. We need to kind of get some shadows going up in here. Just some textural things, so. And the great thing, because these are all just rocks, is that we can, you know, kind of play around with doing things like this. Because then we can just show detail this way. Mostly what you can see is happening right now is just increasing that line weight in there. Do something like that. Maybe something like this here. And that there, and that there. Definitely want this all up in there. Okay, so there's that, and we have to do something similar down with these areas here. This area is a big empty space, and I do want to do something with that. I just don't know what, so that's another way that I know that this piece is not going to be done just today in just this one sitting. But it's okay. So what do I want to do here? So we have our light coming from down in this direction, so we can do just a little bit here. I don't want to go crazy, but okay. Do something like that. So that helps me to figure out what's going on right around in here. That's perfect. Dry brush there, dry brush in there. Okay, so I'm thinking is maybe right around in here should be a lip of some kind, just to add in the space for some shadow to go. Watch your fingers also on wet ink, because your fingers are the material that will also smear ink. I say that as my finger just hit some of my ink and I got some ink on my finger. Yay! Cleaning my brush. You know, something I also did not do. Come back here. Yeah. So much going on over here. Okay. Just gotta get here for this brush. Okay. And of course, it's fine if the line is just a little wacky while we're rendering stone. So I'm always a fan of, whenever I'm rendering more natural objects, I give myself a little more freedom to play around with the shapes and the textures, so they can be a little more varied. Shows a more age, a little more character, a little more personality to what's happening. Clean that up. And so that wasn't you. Where's the brush I just had? Oh boy, okay. Go in here with a little bit of this, because that's now a lip that's in there. not the greatest, but it'll do. I think it's fine. So, stepping back, looking at all I've done, this is the point where we can start to really look at where else more details can be added. So maybe we can get in a little something in there. There's another spot that I saw up here somewhere. Now, obviously, the big thing about working in ink is that you always want to make sure that your lines will almost always come out looking like an outline. So just do that. And then a little bit of this. Much like mine are right now, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. I mean, this is what I would consider a production piece, but it's okay because, you know, the main thing, I feel like the most important thing is that you're always learning. And even on your production pieces, when you're making mistakes, you're still learning how to be better, and that's fine. That's always acceptable. That as long as you're learning where you can be better in your application of your paints and your medium, you always want to look at it that way instead of thinking, oh my god, I can't believe I just made this mistake. It's like, well, you know what? I learned something here. And that's really how I feel about this piece. I learned quite a lot from working on this. Alright, so next, what do I want to do about their background? Was kind of feeling putting some trees in there, and you know what? I think I will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my thin brush here, my very tiny brush, and I'm just going to draw in some very light lines that shows me where I am putting some trees in. The whole thing about inking is that you're not really trying to recreate the entire drawing. You're not trying to fix drawing mistakes. You're trying to add on to the piece itself. You know what? That's fine. I don't really need to do too much. We'll do something like that maybe down there. So years ago, I had kind of realized that almost every painting and drawing that I've ever done has trees in it, which was a fun revelation to make. And then I just leaned into it. So I say, you know what? This is what I do. All my paintings have trees in it. Trees are great little things. They make me happy. I love putting them in my work. Add a little more texture here. To do all this. So I just said, you know what? I made an entire series of paintings that were just trees. Called it 9 Woods. It's a fun little thing. I think I still have those paintings floating around. Oh, you know what? No, I think they're probably at my art group. So when I moved to Columbus, I joined an art group, and I had shown off that series at one of our shows. So I think the group still has those paintings. If not, then I really have no idea where they are. I feel kind of guilty about that, but that is what it is. I'm actually considering doing... So they were little watercolor drawings on watercolor postcards that I had ended up getting framed. Some very inexpensive frames. I think I picked them up at like a Family Dollar. And they were great looking pieces. And now that I'm thinking about it, there is a series of drawings that I want to do that I think would be really fantastic for such a small format again. And I think I want to do that. So obviously if I do, they'll probably be available on the website once I get the shop set up. The website will have a shop to it. That's a work in progress. I just need something to put in said shop. So I haven't done that yet, but just get some fun cracks in there. You know what? I'm seeing a thing down here that I want to put in. No, I'm going to resist because it's not fully thought out and I don't want to screw this up any more than I already have. And I say it's fine a lot, and that's mostly just because, there's some things you really can't change when you're working in a permanent medium. But that is definitely something I do not want to do, is just throw something on here and then it not look good, and it's too late to change it because I did it in ink. This is looking kind of good right now, so... Ooh, excuse me. It's really rough stone going on here. Excuse me. And we're just drawing some texture lines. Oh, that's a cat hair. Thank you, Bean. I keep looking out the window, expecting rain. Mostly because I keep hearing the leaves from outside rustling, and that's kind of what that sounds like when that happens around here. Okay. So... you know what? I will do it this way. So a really fun thing, especially when drawing trees, is what you can do what I'm going to do down around here is just kind of draw in some of its texture in black. That I will play around with because that's always fun. And it's very simple to do. Just drawing in kind of semi-leaf shapes. Just a few dabs here and there. You want it to obviously be roughly in the shaped pattern of your trees themselves without going too far out. And obviously, yes, you can get them up here in the tops as well. The trick is to not make them look too uniform, because then it just looks contrived and it's a big blotchy mess. Much like what I'm doing right here, but you know, we'll deal with it. Oh, that kind of looks like a face over there. Let's go ahead and do that. And we do want to deepen this down here. So, I think we're approaching a really good stopping point for this piece. But before I go, I want to get in here and just kind of, like I said, really just get on in there and add those little details and do the same over here. Far away from the shadows, we have darker boughs. Or far away from the light, excuse me, we have darker boughs. And as we get closer to the light, we can do little things like this. You always want to step back from the piece itself just to really take in the whole thing of what you've got going on, in case you need to adjust something. You know, kind of the step back process is really you taking a moment to look at your piece as though you're just a viewer, not the artist, not the person who's been, you know, working on the piece for the past 8 hours, but just as someone who's coming by to look at it and just say, you know, what am I seeing here? And really take this opportunity to be as critical as possible about what you've done with your work that so far that day, and just say, does this look as good as it can be? You know, me as a viewer, what am I seeing? Like, if this was somebody else's piece and I had that opportunity to say, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then it'd be great. Say that to yourself. How can I make this look better? What else can I do here with this piece that's really going to turn up the textures or turn up the look of what I've got going on here. And then you're going to do it. You're gonna visualize it, and you're gonna see where you need to add those extra details, and then you're just gonna go for it. So I've got a different brush here that I want to kind of do the same thing that I did here. I want to do that right here on all that. And, you know, you're going to do that in every stage of the piece's development. You know, you're looking for any place that you can add detail, any way that you can pluck out more of that detail or add something, and it's going to be the moment when you realize and you see that, oh, you know what, this needs to be added over here in order for this whole thing to make sense. I almost forgot to draw in detail here of her staff. There we go. That. Okay. I'm leaving this open because I feel like something should be down here. Maybe a plaque or something. I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling. We're going to go ahead and just black this all out. Show a little more separation between these two characters here. Okay. Yeah, that's better. All right. Well, I don't really know. Not really seeing... Well, I'm seeing a few things that I could do, but I feel like I want to kind of give it a break. So, and we'll do something like this. And as you well know, originally these were going to be outlines, and then I said, you know what, I have to do some texture. I gotta put some texture in there. I can't do this without any texture. So that's why we have our trees just kind of growing back here, which is fun. It's fine, and it's fun. All right, so that's the end of this. I don't want to move on to another piece so soon. So I want to kind of sit with this for a little bit. You know what, I'm missing something in here. We should just go ahead and do this. Again, now we want to show separation between characters as much as possible. Because that will require me to like change out, to take this down, to put a new piece over it, or maybe I can tack something on top of it to work on that. But I don't really want to. I want to let this session be what this is, and just kind of enjoy this experience. So I will say that this is going to be done for now. Thank you so much for joining me and watching me as this piece really starts to take shape and comes to life. I will be back next week, hopefully next week, to, we'll see about adding some more color, because I think we're just about ready at that stage. I will go ahead and clean up some of these pencil lines off camera just to get all of that done, and then we'll jump back in. What I'll probably do is how I always do my paintings. I'll start with a very, very, very light wash of something, maybe a blue or a yellow, really depending on what I want the overall light to look like. And then we'll start adding in the deeper colors of their outfits and more details. Now, since everybody is so close together, one thing I do want to do is keep the colors true, the outfits true to each character, while also making each character's colors distinct. So I don't want to say, let's, do two people wearing blue. I don't want them standing next to each other. I've got some bright colors going on in here. I've got some whites, some reds. I got one character, who is wearing a very dark black, some green, some brown. So I've got a lot of colors to really play around with here for this piece. So we'll start with that next week. We'll come in, we'll do that wash, and we'll actually start with our background colors so that we have all of that done. We can really start to see where things are taking shape. It'll give us another idea and another clue of where our lighting is going to be and how that's going to make an appearance here. And then we will go from there. So pretty soon, this piece will be complete, and we'll use the rest, the next few weeks to get this piece done. I don't want to jump to another piece just yet. I like where we're going, and I like what we're doing right now with this, so I definitely want to say let's finish this piece during our pencil, ink, and brush sessions, and then, then from after that, we'll move on to something new. So, as always, you will see a little snapshot of this floating around, so, we get to these really great stages where pieces finish at that particular session, and then we'll show it off just to see, what our family and friends think of it, and then we'll come back. So thank you for joining me. I will be back next week at 1 p.m. to jump into some background colors, and I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Happy Pride if you're going to Pride, especially if you're in Columbus or in your city. You do have Pride happening this weekend. Happy birthday to me, of course. I will say that for myself. Again, my birthday is next Tuesday, so I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but it'll be something. And then, if you're doing anything else this weekend, I hope you enjoyed E3. If you're watching that or you just got back from that, whatever the case may be, enjoy your weekend, everybody. It is Saturday. I am done for the day. I'm probably going to sit here and play some video games, so, we'll see you around. Take care. Bye.